comfortable and get a drink. Hello and welcome. My name is Paul Tullock. I am an Apple Distinguished Educator in the 2017 class. I'm an Apple Professional Learning Specialist and I've been a primary school teacher for 13 years. My experience ranges from early years right up to year 6 in primary school, and I am the Professional Development Consultant for Jigsaw 24 in England, which means that I work with schools and school leaders to implement technology into their school and make sure that it has the most impact. I then work with pupils and teachers to enhance and engage right across the curriculum. Today what I'm going to be talking to you about is I'm going to be talking about using podcasts to create and engage in real world authentic audience. So let's get started. So why podcasting? Well, podcasting's it's very time efficient, and what I mean by that is it can be consumed really easily. You don't need to sit down and devote all of your time to listen to a podcast. You can listen to it while you are doing other things. For example, I listen to the podcast when I'm in the car, when I'm doing jobs, or when I go to the shops, and it's just really easy to pick up and consume. What I also love about podcast is, from the creator's point of view, it really gives a personal insight to the creator, which doesn't always come across in kind of written work. Another amazing feature of podcasts is they're really easy to make, and they're authentic. They have a purpose, because if you publish them, people listen to them and they have a real audience. So let's have a little chat about why using podcasts. So this all came about because this is my daughter Camille, and she's 9. Now, my daughter Camille is a firecracker. She is unbelievable. She's a personality. She's a wonderful, wonderful child. She's also very bright, and she's read more books in her 9 years than I have in my 40 years. She's a book monster. She devours books. She talks about books. She's passionate about books. And when lockdown came in March of 2020, schools just weren't ready, and her school, which is a wonderful school, sent home an A4 printout with a grid where they could choose what they had to do on it. And one of them was to write a book review. And straight away I said to Camille, book reviews, brilliant, you love books, let's get that done. And her reply was, what's the point? And I said, what do you mean, what's the point? She says, well, I'm going to write this review and spend lots of effort, and who's going to read it? My teacher, nobody else. What's the point? And I thought, at 9 years old, she's got a pretty good point, to be fair. There's no authentic audience there. So we had a little discussion, and we decided, how could we get it out there? How could we turn this into something where it's actually worth the effort and somebody's going to get to really share that passion? So we decided on a podcast. Now, the podcast, it took a lot of planning. It was like any good piece of English work, and we really thought about it carefully. And what we decided it fell into 3 categories. We decided, what is it that we're wanting to share? Now, this was obviously Camille's love of books, and we wanted to share all that knowledge and all that passion that she's got. We had to think about, like any good piece of work, as we said, who's it for? Who's the audience? Is it for teachers? Is it for other children? Is it for adults? And we had to we had to plan how it was going to be structured. How are we going to put this together? How is it going to be engaging? How are we going to make people keep coming back and listen to this podcast? Now, in our first iteration of the podcast, or should I say Camille's first iteration of that podcast, she recorded it in a slightly different way, and it was just Camille. And while I was really proud of her for producing this podcast, it just didn't flow, and she wasn't happy with it herself. So what we decided on was that we were going to do it, and I'll just explain it. It wasn't always like this. So we decided that we were going to use 3, possibly 4 apps, but the 3 main apps were Pages to plan, GarageBand to create the podcast, and Anchor to produce that podcast. Now, when we started this, and we started the first 2 podcasts maybe, the how was notes. We decided that we'd plan it in notes. What slowly became apparent was you couldn't keep the template in notes, and it was difficult to delete everything out. So we decided to go for Pages. She also started to record her talking parts of her podcast in voice memos. And what we found after that was you then had to save them somewhere on the iPad, which wasn't always intuitive. So we decided in the end, after a few tries and errors, we went to record straight into GarageBand. And we decided that she actually wanted to publish it and see if anyone would listen to it. So we went with Anchor, which is a free podcasting app. I believe it's now owned by Spotify. You can sign up and you can create an account, and you can publish that onto Spotify and onto the Anchor app. What we kind of learned along the way was that you can only have one podcast, like one kind of podcast show with multiple episodes. You couldn't have multiple podcasts on there. So that's just worth bearing in mind. Now, something that I just want to kind of show you first of all is I would like to show you actually what Camille's podcast looks like. So we're just going to dive over to my iPad, and what we're going to do is we're going to be able to have a look at our podcast. So if we go into the podcasting app and we go to library, we will be able to find her podcast. Now this is a bit of a shameless plug, but Camille, it didn't turn out to be a one-off. She's on 3 episodes now, 3 seasons, sorry, and there's multiple episodes about lots of different books. We did a World Book Day special where for a week we did a short podcast about short reads, and it's just something that's grown, and we try to do it as often as possible, but unfortunately, obviously, sometimes life gets in the way, so it's not weekly, but it's once every couple of weeks, and she really enjoys doing that. So let's kind of dive into the kind of planning side of it, and we will have a look at how this works. So just going to switch over to Pages now. And what you'll notice in Pages is this is her podcast plan. So we kind of decided how it should be structured. We very simply used the table, which was more difficult to do on notes. Now, one of the things that's worth bearing in mind is I did a bit of podcasting with my class before lockdown, and we never actually got them finished and published, and then I left the school after that. But the reason that we went for Pages was you've got this wonderful option here to collaborate on Pages, which I know you can do on a note, but it's a bit easier on Pages. So what we did was we opened up the collaboration feature, which is the person. You would tap the very top, the share options, and all we did was we shared it with the link so anyone can make changes. You then decide how you want to send that link, whether it be Showbie, Seesaw, email, Teams, or copy the link, and we just shared it that way. Now, the way that Camille decided that she wanted to structure her her podcast, was we did an introduction, which was the same every week. She explained kind of what was coming up in the show, and a little bit about the book that she was going to cover. And also then from there, she went into more detail about the book. And then the real purpose of this podcast was to share Camille's favourite bits. So we shared, she had a little section about a favourite bit where she would share it. And she learned that she couldn't give away spoilers. And then she wanted to make it unique, so she came up with the idea of giving it an emoji trio. So the emojis of how it made her feel while she was reading it. Then she had a little section on who should read it, so that kind of recommendation going along the book review lines. And then I had a section, because I was helping her host it was dad jokes. And from there, dad jokes, we had a little section about please get in touch via Twitter or via the Anchor app. And that's how we decided to plan that out. Now, I've also just made a very quick plan here just to show you that I'm going to try and do a live one today for you as well. So this is my little plan, obviously just a very brief one because we're going to try to do one live at the moment now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to quickly jump over to show something just about the design section. So I'm going to jump into the design section and I'm going to open Keynote. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Keynote here. And this is a Keynote that I've just made. Now, when it comes to designing, a podcast needs artwork. And Keynote, as anybody who uses an iPad knows, that Keynote is fantastic. You can do lots of brilliant things on it. It's the Swiss Army knife of apps. Animations, movies, you name it, but really great for making posters and artwork. So what we've done here is I've literally taken the slides from today. I'm just going to delete this now because that's for later. And that's the front cover of the artwork. Now this would work if you wanted to post it to Anchor and to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and whatnot, but also it would work if you just wanted to share it internally, if you didn't want to put it on the internet and you wanted to share it internally. Now it's worth noting that in the document setup here, if you go to document setup on the side, I've changed it to slide size square. Now the reason that I've done that is because when you publish to Anchor and Apple Podcasts, the artwork needs to be square. So it's recommended that it's no more than 1400 by 1400 to a maximum of 3000 by 3000. So just a quick design tip there, that really works. If you're working with groups as well, what you can do is, say you had four pupils working in a group. One could be the designer who designs the artwork and designs the advert that goes to promote it. Another could be the editor and the recorder, and two could plan it and be the kind of interviewer and the interviewee. So that's just a few little things there just to kind of show you. So now we are going to jump into the creating side of it now. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to actually create a podcast. So I'm going to open GarageBand. And what you'll notice now is in GarageBand, they've got this plus button at the top with a voice recorder. And it's brilliant because it allows you to just go straight into recording your voice. Don't have to select any tools, and you can just go straight in there. Now, what I'm going to do first of all, before I start, is I'm going to hit this plus up here on the top line. And this is the section. Now, it's set to automatic. Now, the reason that I like to change it, I like to put it up to about 300 because this allows me to play with the timeline, so I can add things and I can see the timeline in a bit more detail. I'm going to leave it at 301, and that's just preference. I'm sure the musical amongst you will have lots of different ways of doing this and finding other ways to do it, but I'm not musically minded, so that's just my preference. And what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to go to the instrument selector, and I'm going to add something in. I'm going to record a little kind of soundtrack at the start. So I'm going to go along now, and I'm going to choose the Solaris because I know that I like this. Now what I will say is when I hit record, it's probably going to kick me out. Oh, it hasn't. And we'll just stop it there. So what we've done is we've recorded a little introduction, a little theme tune, if you will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the track bar now. And what you'll notice is I've got all of the tracks have been recorded separately from those live loops. And if I pinch my fingers across, so if I pinch them across like that rather than up and down, but across, I can zoom in on that time bar, that kind of section, and I can see it. Now, what you'll notice is there's a bit of a gap at the start there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of the sections here. I'm going to highlight them all. I think they're already highlighted, and I should be able to drag them all right back to the start. And something else that I can see there is, if you can see it, there's like a little, it's almost the second loop's kicked in. So what I could do there as well is I could put the playhead there and I could drag all of those in just to kind of shrink it down just a little bit. And this one here, we can just delete that one. So we've got a very rough iteration of a soundtrack there, which is great. Now, there's a little handle just down here on the side next to the organ. It's a little grey handle under where the mouse pointer is. I'm just going to pull that out ever so slightly, and I can adjust the volume of each of the instruments here. Now, I'm going to turn the voice recorder up because when we come to record it, we want the voice to be over the top of the music. So I'm just going to turn all those down ever so slightly. And again, I'm just doing this quickly, but you can just kind of see where I'm going with that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the playhead to where I want to start recording. Now, I can start recording anywhere. I can record here if need be, but sometimes the music puts me off. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll it up to the end. And I've got the script that I had on my second iPad just here next to me. And I'm going to record that little introduction. Hello and welcome to the Think Ahead South Africa iPad Summit. My name is Paul Tulloch and I'll be presenting about using podcasts to create engaging and authentic real-world experiences. Just going to hit stop and I'm going to go back to that track bar again, and what you can see is I've recorded that in the wrong place, so I'm just going to drag it up to the audio bar on the top. I'm going to listen back to it. Hello and welcome to the Think Ahead South Africa iPad Summit. My name is Paul Tulloch and I'm quite happy with that, but I wanted to play over the soundtrack there. So, and also it sounds quite loud. So what I can do is I'm going to try and move that volume up again if I can. There we are. And I'm just going to take it down ever so slightly. And I can listen back to it now. Welcome to the Think Ahead South Africa iPad Summit. My name is Paul Tulloch and I'll be presenting about using podcasts to create engaging and authentic real-world experiences. Perfect. So there's the first little bit. Now what I like is, I like that voice, the one that's singing in the background, and it's this one here. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to tap on it and I'm going to copy it. And the reason I'm going to copy it is, I think that would make a really little, and really nice little instrumental to kind of break up each section. Now obviously it's so long, so I'm going to reduce it down, and I'm going to move the playhead and I'm going to play it and see what it sounds like. I'm just going to drag that one in ever so slightly there. I'm quite happy with that. Obviously you can spend a bit more time doing that, and we're just going to kind of push it to the side there. So that's absolutely fine. We've got that bit in. And what I should have done before when I made the mistake was I should have tapped this bar on the top to highlight the recorder. I'm just going to record the second section now. So coming up in the show today, I will be showing you how to use Pages to plan your podcast, Keynote to design it, GarageBand to create it, and Anchor to share your creativity and your passion with the world. Let's stop. We'll go back to that track view, and what should happen is it's popped that one right there, and I'm going to copy this bit again, and I'm going to paste it. Oops. No, I'm going to copy that bit. I hit select all. The mouse is quite sensitive. And I'm going to paste it just where the playhead is there. And that should hopefully break it up. I'll just hit undo because I've selected them all by mistake. And it's just this one that I want to copy. And then I'll just use my finger to put the playhead in the place and paste. And what we should have is at the end of my little section of speaking, and obviously you can get this exactly right with your editing. And Anchor to share your creativity and your passion with the world. And we'll just leave it there like that. Now, it's that simple. Once you've created it, you've got your timeline there. You can keep going through there. You can do the same again once your podcast's finished. You could copy that whole section like I did before by accident, paste that at the end, and then talk over the outro at the end, and your podcast is done. Now, what is really, really good about this as well is if I just go back out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this, and I'm just going to call it podcasting demo. And from there, if I want to use this template again, I can right mouse click and I can duplicate it, so all of the soundtrack is in the same place. It's just the content that I can cut out and reorder, and it's really simple to do that. Now once I've done it, I've renamed it just to make it easier to save and easier to find when it comes to publishing, and I'm just going to hold down and I'm going to select the share option, and I'm going to save it as a song. Now there's a number of reasons that I'm saving it for a song. One, if I don't want to share it via Anchor, I can drop it onto a Keynote file and we can change that so we can publish it internally without putting it on the internet. And two, that's the format that it needs to be to go onto podcasting. So I can change artist info, composer, but I'm happy with that. I'm just going to hit share. And now this is the interesting option. I need to go to open in here. And what it's going to do is it's going to export that sound file, and then I'm going to save it into my files, into my iCloud Drive or on my iPad. So it's just going to take a little bit of time there just to load in. Just exporting that song. And then what we'll do is we will save that into iCloud Drive. Now I think it might, no, it's kicked in there the second I touched it. And the second, because I've hit open in A, I now get the option to save it to files. And I've got a podcast folder there. We've called it podcasting demo. You can add a new folder if you needed to, and we'll just hit save. And it's that simple. We've created a very quick, very easy to do podcast. And from there, what we are going to do is we are going to have a look at how you now use this to create your podcasts and how you use it to publish your podcasts. So let's have a look at the publishing options now. So let's jump over to publishing with Anchor. We've now got Anchor. Anchor, you can see, is this app here, purple. It's a free app to download. It's free to register. And it's very simple to publish a podcast with. Now, what it's worth noting is, I think you've probably got to be over 13 to do this, but when you use Anchor, you can only publish one podcast, so you can't have multiple podcasts. What I mean by that is, my daughter publishes all hers on here, but she can't have like a second podcast with a different title and a different piece of artwork. You can only publish the one. So if you were doing this in class and it was safe to do so, what you could do is create a class account or a school account, and you could share the various episodes through there. So I'm just going to jump in now into Anchor. Going to have a little look, and it's really simple with Anchor. You create a profile and you sign up and you create your podcast, which I have already done, and this is my daughter's podcast, and it's really simple to do. You've got account settings, activity, all those types of things down the side. And to simply create, you can record in Anchor, but it's a little bit trickier, and I find GarageBand much easier to do it in. So what we're going to do is we've gone to create, and we're going to go to library because we've saved that podcast file. So we're just going to pop that in there. It's going to upload. Podcasting demo should appear here on the side. And when it does upload, quite simply all we're going to do is we're going to hit the plus button on the side, and it's going to pop it into our timeline. So if you did have multiple files, you could upload them all here. I just find it's easier to do it in GarageBand. So we're going to pop that there. And podcasting demo, it's on for 53 seconds, and you could add in any other segments if you wanted. And from the top here, you can edit the name of the episode. You can give it a description, which is the show notes, and then once you are ready, you can hit publish. And what that'll do is it'll create a link on Anchor, and it'll publish on Anchor, and it will publish across to Spotify as well. And I'm not going to publish this because this is my daughter's podcast and this is just a demo. But from there, if you wanted to publish as well, what you would need to do is you would need to have a Podcast Connect account. So I'm just going to sign in with the Podcast Connect account now. And let me just get that password there. So 647795 647795. And again, it's free to sign up with an Apple ID. Everything comes in here. You create your show at the top, and you've got all of your information here. Now, to publish to the Apple podcast app, what you need to do is you need an RSS feed, and you quite simply you upload your artwork here and you publish you paste the RSS feed in here from the Anchor app. Now I'll quickly show you how to do that. It's really quite simple. I'm just going to skip back and I'm going to go to my profile, and if you go to podcast distribution, there is a button down here, tap to copy your RSS feed, and when you tap on it you have the option to copy the link. You would simply go back to Apple Podcasts and you would post your RSS feed in there. Now the first one does need to be verified. It does need to be checked to make sure that it's suitable and it's legitimate to go on the podcast store. But once you've done it, from there what you can do is you just publish onto Anchor, and Anchor will automatically publish it because Apple Podcasts pulls in the RSS feed. So every time the RSS feed's updated, it pulls in a new episode. It's really, really simple to publish, and it's just a really great way of kind of doing those things. So let me see, what is the impact then of podcasting? Well, the impact of podcasting is quite simple. It's had a big impact on my daughter. So the reason it's had the impact is it's allowed her to share her passion with the world. It really has it's given her a voice. It's given her something that she can share her love with. And you'll notice in the photograph there, my son Sebastian, he's 6. He did a Christmas episode with her because it sparked curiosity in Sebastian as well, and he wanted to get involved, and now he's thinking, can he do a podcast? But he can't decide what he wants to do his podcast on. But it just sparks that curiosity for others as well. I have to admit, her confidence has grown massively. Her personality really comes through, and it's just helped her grow into this even more amazing little person. And what I will say is, how is it authentic? Well, here is exactly how it's authentic, because we tweet this out and we tweet the authors of the books that we review, and she has had some absolutely phenomenal feedback from people like Rachel Patterson, people like Harry Heap, Claire Barker, Maz Evans, who Let the Gods Out. They've all tweeted her and said what a wonderful job she's done and how happy they were to hear somebody loving their books. And it's that authentic engagement where authors have engaged with Camille and they've told her how well she's done, and there's a real purpose. And I'll be honest, there's a bit of a perk as well, because she has received some free books. She's got a lot of things from authors where they have released new books, and she's got a sneak peek. And Harry Heap sent her a signed copy of the next book in the series, which she was absolutely delighted with. So podcasting is a phenomenal way to really give your pupils engagement, but also to give them a real authentic audience to work with. Thank you very much for listening to me today and for allowing me to share my love of using podcasts with children. If you've got any questions at all, you can contact me. I'm always on Twitter, so my name is @Mr. Tulloch on Twitter, or you can contact me through my email, which is paul.tulloch@jigsaw24.com. But thank you very much for allowing me to share my love of podcasts.